Good morning.
It's time.
It is time to start.
Time.
We looked down and thought, whoop, we better go.
Monday.
La 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 la.
Don't get a suit
La 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 la
for
la.
singing a song
For
that's
singing a
trademark.
trademark song now.
And scene.
Good morning, everybody.
morning.
Welcome to Monday on the We're Better When We Come Together
Morning show.
with Dr. Teri Murphy.
And Chris Murphy.
Hey, what's happening?
Did you guys have a good weekend? Or is every day the weekend now? Or is every day the week?
You're definitely right.
Yeah.
Today is definitely
I
the
don't
weekend.
know. What do we feel about weekends
Hey, good morning.
versus weekdays now? Do we still have weekends and weekdays, or is everything just...
I honestly, yesterday,
different time.
there was some point where it dawned on me that, like, this could be Sunday, which it was. This could be the middle of the week. I have no idea. I could be missing clients right now because every day just feels like a weekend with our kids home. And there we go.
You all right?
I am.
Did your foot need more space?
No, I needed more space on Facebook.
To see your face? Here, we'll come
I need
in.
more space to see my face.
Oh, yeah. I was as angry as the tiger on my shirt.
When?
On, what day was it that I was so mad? Friday or Saturday?
Both, I believe. You had some anger going on in both of those days. Good morning.
I was so mad. I was picturing myself like those cartoon, like, do you remember Ferdinand, the cartoon bull?
Oh, yeah.
Like
What did he do?
Steam coming out of my nose.
Good morning.
Hoofing. I would snort out harder, but I don't want to embarrass myself and like send something.
Oh, that's certainly that day that you were snorting like a bull on the trail was on Saturday. Yeah.
Y'all, when we talk tomorrow about anger,
Yeah.
I've got some stories that I'm going to be sharing because I think I'm bouncing around in some different places in the grief cycle. So Leslie's saying I was in the office. I was in online class all day Saturday. Been working from home for a week and a half. That structure helps. Yeah, the structure's a huge helpful thing. I know for me, I've gotten my planner out. I think I talked to you all about that before, and we have some light structure in our house. Like on work days, it's very structured, at least while I'm working, but we've been like baking and hiking. Our daughter wanted to go on a walk yesterday, and we went on a 2.5 hour hike.
It was the hike of hikes
5
yesterday.
mile hike with our 12-year-old daughter, who is not
great.
a huge hiker.
She was a champ yesterday.
She was
though.
amazing.
Yeah. We had a fun
She wanted
time.
to keep going and keep going and keep going, and we went. You can look in our Instagram. I think you probably posted something on there too. The tallest hill probably all in the town where we lived. We hiked to the very top of that hill, and it was so beautiful. You couldn't see anything else in your sight line, so if you put your hands out and just look up, it feels like you're standing on the top of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. You can only see sky and clouds, like no trees around, no nothing else.
And it's very,
Eyesight.
it's a hill. It's not like a rocky mountain.
No, it's
And
grassy.
so it looks very much like The Sound of Music when you get up on top. And so Terry, you did a little Sound of Music. Twirl around.
Have always, if you grew up watching The Sound of Music like me, I always wanted to be Maria and run up a hill into like a grassy open area.
What are we going to do about Maria?
I don't know. How do you
solve
catch
a problem?
a cloud
Yeah.
and pin it down?
Oh,
That's
man.
unfortunate. We gotta block somebody. Hold on just a sec. Let's see. This has been a thing I've been reading about. Hey, how did you do that yesterday?
There you go.
No.
Here you go. Oh, I'll
You
handle
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
How did you
Just
do
keep
that
chatting. Just keep chatting.
So, here we go.
So we'll just do that for now.
Okay.
We'll see.
Wow.
Maybe it was an honest mistake.
Denial. So we're talking about denial today on
Yeah.
the show.
What a good transition. Wow.
We're talking about the stages of grief, and how we've started out the show is really talking about the latest on the pandemic, just while we're all in it. And it's been a thing that our community has really been supporting one another and sharing with each other. different things that are helpful, different stories of things going on. We would love to have you be part of our community if that's something that you would be interested in on Facebook. It's facebook.com/groups/come together group. We would love to have you be part of our group. So
we got double slashes in our name.
The group is a place where we're just staying connected. We're in this together, and it's the whole point of this morning show to be able to come together to talk about things that are helpful and that really matter. We were doing this about a year and a half, I guess, before the pandemic, and we'll be doing this throughout and after, and want this to be a place that you can really come, a place that you can feel safe and connected and encouraged, and even get some tips and tricks on healthy relationships and mental health along the way too.
I think that's great. I wanted to check in with everybody and do our morning check-in. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you today? With the state of the world, the state of your health, the state of everything. 1 being not doing very well at all. 10 being, this is great. I'm really thriving right now. So where are you at today?
Knowing that your numbers can fluctuate. So what you are today or what you even are in this minute could change, in the next couple minutes or next couple days. And I usually put like a surfing emoji personally as well, just because mine fluctuate pretty rapidly so far.
Yeah.
What is yours? What do you feel?
Man, I feel like, okay, so I've got this little thing that I wear to bed. I've got this armband that I wear to bed every night, and it tells me how I sleep. And I don't know if it incorrectly read my sleep last night or if it is getting information that I am not aware of, because I felt amazing when I woke up. And it gave me 22% recovery on the night, which usually means that it would have been very poor sleep and very poor recovery.
I think that was my recovery that night. I didn't sleep at all.
Yeah, but I feel great. I feel like that I had a really fun time yesterday with family. We watched one of my favorite movies last night, That Thing You Do.
Oh, so good, y'all.
As we ate steak and potatoes. We had such a fun time together. We went on that hike. Made a blueberry cobbler. Like yesterday was awesome. I got some good sleep last night. I woke up feeling ready to go this week, and 22%. So I'm not believing this thing.
I think your muscles are probably recovering from our hike.
Nah, maybe so. But regardless, I'm going to put myself at like 7, 8.
Stella says she slept 13 hours yesterday. Yeah, sometimes we need to. You might find yourself sleeping more, napping more, eating more. Those are things that we do when we're in, honestly, collective trauma. Things that are too much too soon, too much to process, so much to take in, and we don't even have the end of the story yet. I would even say this is more of a chronic thing that we're going through right now, because it's not a single event, which would be considered acute. Chronic means ongoing, and so it's still ongoing. We're on day 16 of total really quarantine. We haven't been exposed that we know of to anybody with symptoms, but we have not gone out. We have not had anybody over. We haven't done anything for 16 days other than you've been to the grocery and
been to
only
the grocery store a few times
briefly.
And we've gone on exercise walks / hikes / runs.
Yeah. But I forget what I was going to say. What was I talking about?
You were talking about numbers and why we need to sleep more.
Yes. So what happens in experiences like this too, we're on day 16, that was so good. And we still don't know. Like, we don't know really when this is going to end. The government just issued that social distancing has been extended through April 30th. Those are the guidelines. Not that you would know it necessarily from...
Not looking out our window.
I was going to say, not from looking out our window. It's like been a rave over here. Like, more people are hanging out than we've ever seen before.
It is true.
I've never seen the kinds of hanging out that we've been seeing.
And I will say this, again, I posted this on Facebook a couple nights ago, how in any other time in our lives, if we're in a pandemic where we're being told to social distance. So this is different than anything that I've ever come into contact with. So initially, when I look across the street and I see all the people playing together and all the people going on walks, I think like, man, this is great. Look how close our neighborhood is. And then I realize like, oh, all those people can't be in families together. They are still getting together. They are still playing And
Which we're going to talk about today.
yeah, but again, most of it's like, what a neighborly neighborhood we have. This is so nice to see everybody together. And then I'm
We're
like,
good
no!
sharers, including diseases, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good sharers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Mama,
thank
saying
you.
she's so glad that we're inside. Yeah, and we have an immunocompromised kiddo. We have a kid with asthma. So, she stays inside. And, whenever we talk about our kids on the show or on social media, we always ask for their consent ahead of time. I like to say it every time because I think it's important just to know that that's where we come from, but also, oh yay, Olivia, hi!
Hi,
It's
Olivia.
Chris's best friend.
Hi.
Yeah. We hope you're having a good day, Olivia. So, what was I talking about? What?
Man.
Swiss cheese brain.
Swiss cheese brain, indeed.
You know what? It doesn't matter. Let's just talk about what we're going to talk about. Okay, what number are you at?
I'm at a 7 or an 8. And I'd love to hear from Facebook
I feel like
what
such
number
a
you're
Debbie
feeling.
Downer.
Yeah, let's be
Yes.
honest though. What number are you at?
6. And that felt really high for me.
It's all right. You can
What
you can be
just
a
happened
6.
in your brain?
Like, it's okay.
Okay, did you guys see his face? Could you see his face from here? What happened in your brain?
Well, you said 6, and I didn't think that was such a low number. Because I said 7 or an 8, and you're like, wow.
I don't think
my
I've
number's so
seen
low. I'm a 6.
An 8 in 2 weeks.
I have a positive outlook about life.
You do. It's true. And I feel like burning systems to the ground occasionally.
But still 6. That's on the top end of the numbering system.
He's so positive, y'all. This is why we're married to each other.
I'm just saying it. 6 doesn't seem so bad.
Thank you.
What I expected to hear from you is like a 2 or a 3 with how you were prefacing.
Give me a minute, and I'm sure I will be there.
You were prefacing it, and so when you said 6, my brain went, "Well, that's not that low. What's going on? What do I say to that?" I was all getting ready to like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry."
Here's the deal. Wherever you are, it's fine. I just noticed that I feel my feelings, and then I feel our whole family's feelings, and then I feel our neighborhood and the country and then the world.
Sure.
Any other highly sensitive persons, any empaths out there that are feeling the kind of collective weight also? Like, I have to do practices every day to care for myself so that I don't just walk around holding that all the time. But it is the strongest, I feel like, when I first wake up in the morning before I've like meditated, emptied out, prayed, all of that kind of stuff. It sounded like I was talking about pooping, didn't it? Emptied out.
Whoa.
It wasn't. I was talking emotionally, spiritually.
I didn't get the other part. I got emotionally and spiritually. And
Well,
then
maybe it's just me.
And then you bring
Okay.
that conversation up.
All right. That's why so many people stopped watching.
We're gonna have to put a warning on for Olivia. Sorry, Olivia.
Sorry, Olivia. Yeah.
No, I'm actually I'm feeling a lot of that as well. But I also feel like that I am at a good place personally in the midst of all this chaos.
I do too. I have honestly been practicing a bit of gratitude as well, because when I found myself so incredibly angry on Friday and then again Saturday, I was like, this isn't really gonna work long term for me. I want to feel all my feelings, so I'm going to let myself feel all the anger that I feel.
Good.
But I need to counter it in addition with what I know helps. So what I do, which is what all nerds do, is go to the research. And what I found is that a gratitude practice that isn't a denial practice, a gratitude practice that is grounded and rooted in reality, is one that can be very helpful in times like this. So going, and what research says, if you've read Emily Nagoski's book, Burnout, it's fantastic, highly recommend. And there's a great deal of research by, oh my gosh, I forget her last name, Kristen Ness. No, that's my dry shampoo maker, Kristen, oh
Neff.
my God, Neff, yeah.
Woohoo!
Nice!
I never get these book authors correct.
That's fantastic. She wrote Self-Compassion, but what they talk about with gratitude is
Thank you.
when it is connected to another person, that makes gratitude shift things inside of you, rewires your brain towards feeling more positive feelings, more connecting feelings. Yes, Caitlin, exactly. Thank you notes this morning. So when you are very specific and you think of a person that you're grateful for, and then you can specifically recall what you're grateful for about that person in a specific moment, and you write it down, it does something to you inside. The shift that happens inside is beautiful, loving, compassionate. And it also, this is so cool, an added secondary gain is you become a more generous person just in your life, because generosity becomes less about guilt and less about needing to like get it right, do the right thing, and it becomes more about connection and love and that sort of thing. So Kristen Neff, who wrote Self-Compassion, and Emily Nagoski, Burnout.
Yes, both.
Very good. So I added a gratitude practice into my morning routine of writing things down. And here's what is like a bonus on top of that. If it's enough to write it for yourself, but there is a huge added gain if you send your thank you note to the other person, or if you call them up or FaceTime them and then say to them, I'm so grateful for you, and here's why. Now, if you get the weird, kind of feeling inside, like, oh gosh, that feels like a lot of pressure, or you feel kind of exposed, that's because sharing how you really feel, sharing gratitude, is very vulnerable. It's risky to do that, because what tends to happen is, we feel like it's an opportunity to get rejected, because it is. People could dismiss it or say, oh, it's no big deal, because we also have a very hard time receiving gratitude and love and kindness from other people in an honest and direct way. It's why every high school movie in the 1990s was everyone on the night of graduation finally saying to each other all the things they cared about, because there's no risk. Everyone's leaving the next day.
Yeah.
Or why people run through the airport in movies when you used to be able to do
Why
that
did
towards each other.
everybody in those movies leave the day after graduation? The day after my graduation, we just all woke up and went to work.
Had to cut grass
and
like make my bed.
Yeah.
Right?
We didn't do anything the day after graduation, maybe months later.
Yes. Oh, that's really good, Liz. Liz says it's not fear, it's excitement. That's what I tell myself when I'm afraid to share. So what's really cool, nerdy moment there, is in your brain, fear and excitement register in the same place in your brain. The only difference is the story that you tell yourself. So it's just like a roller coaster. Think about that. The anticipation, when you're going to the top of the roller coaster, and the screaming, people are screaming. The only reason it's fun is because you're not telling yourself you're going to die. You're telling yourself this is fun. It's the only difference. But in your body, in your nervous system, and in your brain, fear and excitement are the same. It's just the cognitive reappraisal. It's the story that you tell yourself right after that.
Did you hear that word?
That's different.
Cognitive reappraisal.
That's what it is.
And today's show is brought to you by the word cognitive reappraisal.
So every time we say that, everyone has to do a dance in your kitchen. Oh.
My hair shakes a little too
I like it.
mullety for my taste. I need to do something with it.
You should learn the frat boy fling.
Oh yeah, I threw my neck out in
Frat
2006
fling.
doing that.
There it is. Yeah, that's it. And if you wore a ball cap that made it like come flat down and just flip a little at the front, you have the Alabama frat boy thing.
Yeah.
Which is where we're both from. So today we're going to talk about the stages of grief. We're going to talk about it all week long. And each day we're going to talk about one of the stages. Now, here's what I want to say about, hold on, I'm getting into it. So I got to
get that coffee out of her hand, or it's
teach
going to
with my
sling
hands.
all over.
I don't know how to teach without my
sling
hands.
all over
Any
our
other
studio.
teachers out there need to teach with your hands to really make sure your students get it.
I'm going to get myself ready. I don't know if I'm feeling fear or excitement about your hand movements.
You're feeling excited is what you're feeling.
Yay!
So there's 5 stages of grief. But what I have to say is they aren't separate. It's not just like these separate buckets that you only are in one stage at the time, and then when you move on, that stage
then you
is done.
graduate to the next stage, right?
We talk about it in these stages just because you need different things depending on the stage that you're in. You need something different when you're in denial than you do when you're at acceptance. And what's difficult is some of the stages, when they're overlapping, there are competing needs that you're going to end up having when you're there. And that's what
so
makes
true.
grief really hard. Yes. So today We'll tell you what all 5 of the stages are, but we're going to focus on the first stage. So the 5 stages are, do you want to say them or do you want me to?
I would love to hear you say them because it sounds so eloquent coming from you.
Okay.
And plus, I may not remember all 5 right now.
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is a researcher who wrote on death and dying decades ago, and really was the first to talk about grief as an unfolding process. And so grief isn't an emotion in and of itself. Grief is a process. It's something that happens to us that has a ton of emotions that are connected to it, within it and between it. But grief is also how we know what it is that we need. So if we can pay attention to our grief and just really be present to wherever we are as much as we can in each stage, then that's going to really help you process through. It's going to help you make sense of what's happening to you and give you the opportunity to have some tools to help yourself with where you are. So why are we talking about grief in the first place? We're all in it. We had a shock, and life as we know it is now different. There was a before and an after, and that's some of the ways that you can tell that you're in grief. So even though Elizabeth Kubler-Ross initially talked about the stages of grief, specifically around chronic conditions, like finding out something life-changing medically, or death and dying, either you finding out that you have a terminal diagnosis and that you're going to pass away, or it could be someone that you love died or was tragically injured, something like that, that there's this medical sort of or life-altering piece that's tangible in that way. Later in her life, she started to expand the model, and posthumously, there have been lots of publications expanding her work to show that grief also includes divorce and separation, deconstructing faith, that there is a grief around decolonization, like looking at pulling apart white supremacy and racist sort of ideology. There's grief around religion and spirituality. There's grief around shifting relationships, grief if you find out that there's something going on with your child that is different than what you thought it was. On and on. I could go on and on about the different kinds of grief that you can end up having. And I would say that collectively in the world is in some grief, and different countries are in different stages, but also individually you can be experiencing grief differently. So even different members in the same household can be in different stages, even if you found out on the same day that things were different and that things were changing.
Caitlin over on Instagram is saying, would you say that we are always grieving something, even if it's in a different stage?
So there are conflicting sort of ideas on that. That's such a good question. Some people would say no, that it's more of a either acute or chronic condition, that there's like an inciting incident and it's this major thing. I'm more in the camp of people who believe that we are always dying and regrowing like a phoenix. Like we're always going through stages of putting things together and pulling them apart, of birth and death. Like I think that we're always cycling through it, and that you can be in different stages of grief about different things in your life all at the same time. You can be in acceptance in one place and be in anger about some other sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's such a good question.
And I think that that's kind of where I currently am with the state of everything. Like for me right now, I have a lot of devastation in my mind, and I'm grieving, going through what's happening as a global community.
Yeah.
But for me, yesterday, personally, I had an amazing, wonderfully connected day with my family. And so that was really life-giving. And so I feel like that in both of those areas, I'm kind of holding both ideals at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling a lot of sadness and sorrow for everything that's happening in the world today, especially for those people who can't get out and go to their jobs that they so desperately need, and those types of things. But for me personally, I had a really good day yesterday. So I was able to kind of, I had to do my best at holding both. Because if I just felt the weight of the world, literal weight of the world kind of thing going on, I feel like that all I need to do is just curl up in a ball in a corner of my house and cry. But on the other hand, being there with my family was really life-giving to me. So holding both. And I hope that helps put some context into that.
Well, so like I've got clients that I'm working with right now that are going through a divorce, and then all of this happened. And so they were in a different place in their grief with divorce, and then this happened. And it can really amplify the grief if you're already like deep into the grief of something significant as well. It can actually be even more difficult. So you might find yourself grieving harder during the pandemic than what seems like other people are going through, and that's okay. And then there are some of us, like I'm just wired really sensitive, really high highs and low lows. So I feel like I ride huge waves every day. Like it's exhausting. And so sometimes I just have to like tap out. I have to tap out, take a nap, read fiction, something that cares and nurtures for me that isn't about the current situation. I can go there. And that was a coping strategy I had as a child. I would escape into fantasy, into fiction, when I couldn't really turn to the adults in my life to soothe me emotionally. So I had to find a way to care for myself. You might be finding yourself turning to things you haven't turned to in a long time, positive or negative, during something like this, when you're feeling a bit helpless. So the 5 stages of grief: denial, shock, isolation, that's stage 1. 2 is anger, bargaining, then sadness, depression, and then acceptance. And there's a 6th sort of stage that wasn't initially in the work that we'll talk about with acceptance, which is meaning making. So the ability to make meaning of what happened to you. What's so difficult for all of us right now in this grief process is it hasn't ended yet. And so even when you're grieving, we're looping through every time we find out new information. Every time that something shifts around the world, it can loop you right back in to the beginning in certain ways. So today we'll focus on denial. I have a friend that was in my doctoral program with me who said, denial is my favorite. And she said, what's so great about denial is you get to just carry on. You get to carry on as if whatever bad news you just got didn't exist, didn't happen.
Just act like nothing's wrong.
Freud talked about this, and Anna Freud in particular talked about denial as a defense mechanism, and that every single human being has defense mechanisms, and we have to develop them, because if we didn't, you'd just be fully exposed to everything that happens to you, and so we just constantly would be traumatized.
Yeah.
The definition of trauma is not being able to process real time what's happening to you. So too much too soon is really the way you can think about it. Lisa Oliveira talked about it in those terms, and I think it is spot on. Perfect.
That
too
is
much,
actually,
too soon. So denial serves to buffer you from the too much, too soon. It basically says that can't be happening. This isn't happening. This isn't real. Right? What? We had a close friend of ours that died on his 18th birthday. And I remember hearing the news about it. And it was like my brain, it just kept bouncing. It felt like the news kept bouncing off my skull. I heard it. I believed it, that someone was telling me that this had happened, but I couldn't take it in. And even still sometimes I bounce back to, did that really happen?
Yeah.
Did we really lose him?
Yeah. After I heard the news, for several hours, I kept thinking but I'm going to hear something soon that says that was a mistake, that he is hurt, but he's not,
he's fine.
He's not passed. He will be okay.
It's a rumor.
I remember that.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's happening now. So denial is also like downplaying or silver lining things. So hearing, like specifically around the pandemic, if we're talking about denial, it can look like not providing for yourself, not having enough resources or supplies for yourself. It could be treating life like nothing is any different. Like, I'm just going to act like none of this is happening. I'm going to go about my life as if it is exactly the same.
Right.
So not taking precautions, not washing your hands the way that the CDC is recommending, not social distancing, not doing the 6 to 10 feet away. So like we've talked several times about how in our neighborhood there are like 20 to 30 boys and men, kids and adults playing basketball, shirts and skins, this close, doing basketball just like it's always been done, sweating on each other, sneezing, coughing, all that kind of stuff in very tight quarters, which takes me to anger. But if we think about it from a psychological perspective, their parents, those adults, could be in denial, right? Saying it's not so bad, or they've been playing together all this time. Certainly if someone was infected, we would see it, right? All of those sort of stories, acting as if your life isn't any different than it's ever been is part of denial. Like, it's a defense strategy.
It doesn't help our case, or it doesn't help us when we're wanting to socially distance and we're going to sit on our porch where we can have some fresh air, we can do some work, we can sit on our front porch that looks at the basketball court.
I know.
So
if
you've
I was
got
in a
a
different
direct
part of the
reference
neighborhood,
every day. So
denial would also be trying to like put my house on the market and move just so I don't have to see them playing basketball every day.
Good morning.
Hi, Ren. Denial can take on also a silver lining effect. So when you start to feel scared or sad about what's happening, pushing those feelings away, just not letting yourself feel any of it is a defense mechanism. Denial it can be conscious or unconscious. Most of the time it's not necessarily like, I know what's going on, I'm just going to pretend like it's not. It can also be like you just can't quite take it in, like, how in the world is this real? This doesn't even feel real. You know
what it makes me think of? There's that meme or that GIF or GIF. I still don't know how to pronounce it after all these years.
I say GIF because graphic.
It's like see, that's what I say too.
I don't know.
The GIF or meme of the dog that's got the little hat on, and he's sitting there, and there's flames all around him, and he's this is fine.
This is fine.
Right.
That's denial.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay in my chair while everything burns around me.
Exactly.
Right. Or like, I'm not going to pretend like I don't care about politics. The way that our current administration has handled everything really started in denial. So then we didn't roll out systems or have government and healthcare support the way that we needed it to as soon as we needed it to, because it was like, this is fine. It's going to blow over. We'll be back in churches by Easter. We're going to be back to living our normal lives as soon as possible. So that's just not judging. I mean, I am, but if we're not judging and we're just looking at it from the outside, that's just denial. That's denial as a stage. It's a defense mechanism, because what's the alternative to denial? Is reality.
Yeah,
it's what's actually happening. The horror and the significance of what's going on is just too much. And so the brain is like, you know what? No. We need to buffer from what this is.
So the thing that I want to say, like not the counterpoint, but just to like maybe talk about it from a slightly different perspective, is the fact that the opposite of denial is acceptance. It's on that same continuum of the stages of grief, but we're not there yet. Yeah. And so I know that for a lot of people, we are at a current stage. We're at a current stage, and we think that we look at other people that aren't quite there yet and have judgment for them. Mm-hmm. And so I would just like to throw some compassion out that we all go through these stages.
Fine.
No. I'm not saying that you don't need to feel your feelings. I'm just saying also let's remember that some people aren't on the same pace of the continuum that we are. And so when we see some of that, to just let's give them a little patience. Also, that also we should be angry when it's time to be angry, but also to just remember that sometimes people's denial is a part of the stages of grief that we all have gone through.
Part of it for all of us.
They're just in it currently when we may not be.
Right.
Yeah.
Denial too can be, we can get stuck in that stage when you refuse to feel your feelings. Like when you don't go there, when you start to feel it coming up and you ignore it or do something different or push it down, that sort of thing too. So, and that happens in all the stages. You can get stuck, you can get lodged in any of those places.
I was going to say, maybe I'm saying all this because I am a professional denier. I am very good at that denial piece. And so...
you should be teaching this part then.
No, I don't need to be teaching. I need to be learning at the feet of the masters of what to do to not deny. Because I can deny until I die.
Deny till you die. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Well, that could literally happen right now. Because what I keep seeing in this denial place is it's one thing if you get some hard news. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to digest. This is kind of different because we're close in with each other, and there's a very fast spreading disease. And so the idea that we need to socially distance when folks are in a denial stage can actually be a bit dangerous, when we're in that sort of stage. And I honestly, I get it. It took me until this Thursday would be like 3 weeks ago before it really clicked for me, like what a big deal it is and that we needed to change everything going on in our lives. And it probably was like, what, 7, 8, 9 days before then that we heard that things were going in this direction.
Yeah.
So I really do have compassion for that. I have compassion for myself getting to where I needed to get to be able to shift things and change things too.
I can remember the day, it was, for me, it was 3/14. It was the 14th of March because it was World Pie Day or National Pie Day or whatever,
Yep.
3.14.
Yes.
And we were going
Everything
to
is
celebrate that
different.
night and get pizza pies and then pie pies, like dessert pies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out to get those and just kind of like bump, bump, bump. Just going about my day, and there was a different feeling in the air.
Something
just
had
like
shifted.
when
Yes.
when I got out to pick up the pies, it just like everybody's attitude is somber, and it's like you could tell that a lot of people were feeling emotions, mainly fear, not really knowing how to process it. And like a day or two before that, I really had a hard day of like, what if this gets bad? But it was that day driving around that I thought like, ugh, this is different. Like I can feel it palpably off of people.
That's what I still feel almost every day. Which denial buffers us from some of that. Some denial is not really, honestly, bad initially when you take that in because the alternative is like significant trauma.
Yeah.
So denial's trying to basically, it's like a garden hose. You know, it's like a garden hose that has like a little spray valve that is trying to titrate how fast the flow is coming out. And so it's trying to slow that flow a bit so that you can tolerate what's happening. So you can bounce between denial and anger, which is the second stage, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. You can bounce back and forth between those two stages for a little bit too, like feeling some feelings, getting upset and kind of coming back to being okay, and then back and forth, which is some of what those numbers are doing. So what do you need in denial? When you're in that stage, what is it that you need? Information and what?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's what you need. You need information and support in those places. What?
It sounded like you were a very dutiful teacher teaching a student, and I felt like 4 years old. I was like, that's what I was going to say. You're like, good for you. That is so good that you were thinking words.
Oh, gosh. Does that sound really condescending?
No, not at all. I felt like I was 4 years old.
Okay.
I didn't feel like you were condescending to a 4-year-old.
Okay, good. I would not want to be that.
No, not at all.
It was right on, though.
Yeah, I'm still just happy, patting myself on the back, and I got it right.
So information helps because, and you want to have good sources and not do this too often. So you've seen some of the recommendations, like check the news twice a day, talk to people, you know, that you trust and that that you can really take that information in. But you can only do little bits at a time. If you're constantly taking information in, that can be overwhelming, and you can actually get back into some denial. Like you just shut down.
Yeah.
Because we really only can tolerate so much. So high anxiety can happen in and around denial, and sometimes denial can take your anxiety down a little bit too. Like it actually can feel soothing a little bit. So culturally, I think we're higher in our anxiety, which makes sense. Anxiety in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's just a warning. It's telling you, this is weird. I can't close the loop. I need some information. Anxiety also seeks information and soothing and calming and the release. Right now, we've not had the release of pressure. We're just pressure. Still don't know. What do we do? What's going to happen? And again, I just want to say this again, that different members of your household can be in different stages of grief. And that can actually be a place where you fight or miss each other too, because you might try and drag each other into different stages, and that doesn't work. You can't be forced along. Like if you've ever been in grief and someone tried to cheer you up when you were in sadness, it's not going to happen. All that happens is you misattune to the other person, and then it really does sound kind of condescending or mean or you know, not compassionate. So show compassion. I think that's a very good point. If someone is in denial and if they are open to it, you can offer information. You know, I'm not talking about like spamming people or info bombing people with stuff, but like a good friend of ours said to Chris the other day when Chris was talking about online, we haven't seen anyone, but he posted something on Facebook that was really funny actually about how our whole neighborhood, now that all this has happened, have now decided that they all want to be best friends and hold each other and hug each other close and talk into each other's faces. And he was talking about all this, and a friend commented and said, oh, it's actually not that big of a deal. Just wash your hands. You can be all around each other. Everyone's probably going to be fine. Just wash your hands. And it was like, what? What are you talking about? That's denial. That is a form of denial. Like, it's not that bad. Don't make a big deal. Everyone's probably fine. Disregard some of the information that you've taken in because it makes you feel safer or makes you feel better or calms whatever it is inside. That's really what denial is about. So where there's denial, there's usually fear and a lot of pushing emotion away or not being ready to go and process things. And I'm going to tell you, there are going to be people through this pandemic who never leave that stage, who never actually come out of it, who don't want to completely adjust to a new way of life. They're like, I'll just kind of put my life on hold, pause, so that I can just kind of hop out on the other side of this and just do life as usual. The problem is the world is going to change. The world already is changed, and it's going to keep changing, and the people are going to change. And so the people who emerge having been in denial are going to end up going through grief again, most likely. So that's going to be interesting. I'm just anticipating there are a lot of people who probably won't ever come out of that stage as well.
Well, that's what we see often in our therapy practices, is people in all stages of this. And so we understand that it's part of the process. And that compassion that you're talking about, having empathy and sympathy for those people going through those, it's just important because we would want the same for us.
Yes.
And so the more that we can have compassion for whatever views that there are, whether they are kind of on the same side we are or they're completely against us, is just kind of to hold it loosely and to try to be there with them in that moment. Because for me, when I'm going through the denial stage, there's not a lot that can be said to me that's going to kick me out until my brain is ready for it.
Or you experience something that impacts you personally.
There you
So
go.
that can also take people out of denial. So if it's hard to believe any of this is real, or people will tell themselves like it's propaganda, or, you've heard everything.
Sure.
When someone close to them is impacted or they personally are impacted, sometimes that's the only thing that will take some people out of denial too. And sometimes not even that. Right?
Yeah.
So everyone is on their own journey when it comes to that. So, again, compassion and information. And then sometimes what you have to do is just draw boundaries about people in denial. That's what we had to do. So we just had to be incredibly specific. There was one kid that kept ringing our doorbell, kept coming over no matter what we said or did. And we just had to say, you can't come anymore. We love you. We care about you. We're not going out. No one's coming in. Treat it like it's quarantine.
You soon, but not right now.
You've got to go. Like, having to be direct and setting boundaries. If the other person who's in denial actually is acting in dangerous ways, that's what you have to do. You can think of it kind of like addiction, right? When someone is still in their active addiction and acting out, it's not that you don't love them and don't want what's best for them, but they have to choose. They have to be ready to make a choice and to shift and to change. And sometimes you just have to draw a boundary and say, I'm going to be right here, right? And here's some information, but ultimately it's their choice if they're going to engage, if they're going to do something.
Yeah, true. Just wanted to repeat again.
Karen wants us to say that again.
Yeah, the statement that you said, which I think that is beautifully.
People who remain in denial will enter grief again.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. It will come for you at some point.
Yeah.
So what we would consider to be the best for human beings, the healthiest sort of way to deal with grief, is to just be where you are, to accept. When you start feeling feelings come up, if you can take time every morning to sit and meditate or pray or just have a quiet time, your feelings will come up. Busyness is a form of denial that can take you out of your feelings and out of your grief process. Sitting still is usually very scary for a lot of us, because we intuitively sort of know, if I really sit still and tune in, I'm going to feel all of this. And if I start to feel it, it could be like the dam that bursts, and I might not ever be okay again. But let me tell you, it will be a lot. When dams burst, it feels like drowning, right? But you are going to survive your feelings, and you can have the resources that you need to be able to care for your feelings, right? And we're going to help with that as you go. Feelings won't kill you. When you really let yourself feel them, they only have a 30 to 90 second lifespan in your body when you just let yourself feel them. They'll wave through and then they'll go. Now you're going to have more waves at some point, but when we resist them, they get lodged, and then they're going to come out sideways, right?
Yeah.
Because they're still there. It's just like, we talk about this all the time, it's dash lights on your car. Come on in. Just duct taping over your gas light doesn't mean that you don't need gas anymore, right? Duct taping over your gas light, you still need gas. You're just going to end up breaking down.
Yeah.
And your car's not going to work anymore.
And as two people that work with couples a lot, you being a professional couples therapist for almost a decade now, and me just finishing up my my degree and moving into doing it more professionally, I'll have to say that if you're feeling those feelings, do your best to try to find somebody that's safe to be able to share those with. Because you may feel safe enough to just share them with the world and put them out onto social media and do all of those things, or you may not feel safe in doing that, and you need one or two people in your life that is safe to receive that message for you. So do your best to find someone safe that you can share that with, so you can dislodge those feelings, emotions, thoughts, opinions, whatever they may be, so that you can then move through the stages in a more fluid manner and try to stay as healthy as possible.
This is a great time to work with a therapist. Tons of therapists I know are doing sliding scale, meaning based on your income for lower rates, and almost everyone that I know is online. So no matter where you are in the world, if you have access to a telephone or a cell phone, a phone of any sort, the internet, the ability to video conference in, you can work with someone. Just find someone in your same state, ask some friends. Psychology Today is a great resource. Tuloha, To Write Love on Her Arms, if you follow them on Instagram, they have great resources. And you can always text the crisis text line, 741-741. Just text help, 741-741, and it's anonymous, and they will respond to you immediately. So if you find yourself feeling really emotional, not sure what to do with it, reach out. Text the crisis helpline, reach to someone safe, like Chris is saying, and have that conversation. Your emotions are really helped so much by more than one nervous system, and you don't have to physically be present with another person to do that. You can talk to them on text, phone, FaceTime, therapy, any of that. Just take good care of you. This is hard. This is very, very hard, what we're going through.
Let me offer this as well. If you don't have a safe person to talk to, reach out to me. And I really do mean that. Go to Chris Murphy Hub on both Facebook and Instagram. Just send me a message. It will be anonymous, or I will read it and respond to you, but I will not say your name in any sort of public forum. If you don't have someone safe to say something to, or you feel like that you need to say something, but you don't feel safe to tell your people around you because of whatever reason, maybe it's an unpopular opinion, maybe you are very scared and you don't want other people to know, reach out to me. I've got a couple of weeks before I can start seeing clients on a regular basis in my practice because of how graduation happens and how I have to wait. Let me use this time that I can't provide therapeutic services to you to just be another ear or a voice or someone that will give some compassion, some empathy to you in a safe and an anonymous way. Again, I'm not going to use this to put your story out on the internet. It's going to be private between you and me. But if you need somebody to talk to, reach out to me in the direct messages or the private messages.
That's really lovely. Yeah. And see, that is it's a beautiful thing I've seen over and over and over again as we're going through all of this, the ways that we're really coming together. I do have a hope that we can really be more collective again as a culture rather than so individualistic. Us all having gone through something together, I think, is an invitation and an opportunity for us to see that we're all really more alike than we are different. You know, we're all humans just trying to make it through, right? We're going through this collectively. All right, everyone. Tomorrow we will be covering anger, which I love and very excited about.
Yeah, we will.
We're going to cover anger.
Everybody
every bit of it.
You should wear a wrestling outfit tomorrow.
Ooh, yeah. I'm going to get up in there in the anger field and talk about the stages of grief.
It's not bad.
Our son is off camera right now. He says
Come
good
say
morning
hi.
to
Do you
everyone.
want to say hi? You drinking coffee?
Yes, I am for the first time ever.
James, that's not the first time ever.
Okay.
We love you all. We hope that you have a great day.
Anger is never bad.
Take this Monday. Thank you, Jay.
Right.
Take this Monday to take care of yourself. I'm so glad that this has been helpful. We want to be here for you to be helpful. It's helpful for us to be here in this community on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow, Tuesday at 7-ish. Maybe 7:04 like we did today, but we will be back and we can't wait to see you. Yeah.
We're not striving for perfection. We're striving to just show up.
Consistency, baby. All
Love
right.
you guys so much.
Love you all.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day.